Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Thanks very much for joining us, folks. I grew up in Latin America. I'm very concerned by what's going on there, the ongoing takeover of the region by commies with help from key people in America, like the Biden holdovers in the State Department, like the Obama administration, like George Soros. It's an issue that has concerned me greatly for a long time. Today we have Congresswoman María Elvira Salazar. She is the U.S. representative representing my hometown, actually Miami, in the U.S. Congress. She's also got a new book out, Dignity Not Citizenship, The Truth About Immigration. No One Is Telling You. She's very well known for promoting human rights. She is a longtime journalist, actually. She is a 5-time Emmy Award-winning journalist. She's a first-generation American, daughter of Cuban political refugees who came to this country after the communist takeover of their homeland. María Elvira Salazar, thank you very much for joining us today. Appreciate it. I
My
want to start
pleasure.
in Latin America. You have been speaking out about what's happening in Guatemala. You posted on X and you sent a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio about the U.S. Embassy apparently threatening judges in Guatemala if they don't support the socialists, if they go for the conservatives. This seems very strange. This is, I understand, a Biden holdover serving as ambassador there. Give us the story. What's going on there?
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, Biden had a very woke agenda, and they imposed that not only in the United States, but in the different countries that receive money or help. And what the stories that I've heard from the Guatemalans are very troubling. Our representatives at the embassy forcing them to talk about gender ideology and gender and everything that has to do with sex, or with ideologies that had nothing to do with the conservative movements and the conservative nature of the culture of those people. So, and then now on top of that, there's 2 judges who belong to the Supreme Court of Guatemala came to talk to me and explain to me that the American embassy was telling them exactly how to vote on different legislation. Since when? We do that. We're not in the business of telling anyone how to vote. We're in the business of spreading democracy and free market economy. So that's why I wrote the letter, and I'm very happy that Marco, who I happen to know personally, who is a friend of mine, who's my constituent, he lives in district number 27 in South Florida, paid attention to what I'm saying, because it's just basically common sense and basic politics. The United States is in the business of spreading democracy, free market economy. We're the beacon of hope. We are the shining city on the hill. We cannot be talking about sex or to our allies.
I know this is an issue that's near and dear to your heart. Of course, your family comes from Cuba, had to escape the communist dictatorship there. But what's happening in Guatemala, what's happening in Latin America is, of course, much bigger. I know you're familiar with the San Pablo Forum, this network of communists. And it seems like the Biden administration and the Obama administration before were very friendly with a lot of the key players here. What is going on in Latin America, and how should the U.S. government be approaching this issue?
The United States should be very much engaged because the Latin Americans want us to be engaged. Latin Americans want to deal with the Americans, not with the Chinese or with the Russians. The problem is that the void that we have left since Ronald Reagan, when he started talking about Sandinistas in Nicaragua and stopping the spreading of socialism and communism in the Western Hemisphere, since that moment, the United States has forgotten the Latin America. This is like the absent father who's there, but the children are always begging for his attention. It's exactly the same thing. But then if the father is not there, then the stepfather comes in, the Chinese, and says, "Hey, here I am. Here's money." And that is the big dilemma that we have as a country. But I think that under the Trump administration, and thank you to Marco Rubio, we are paying more attention. Look what's happening with Venezuela. Look what's happening right now with what you said about Guatemala. I'm the chairman of the Western Hemisphere Subcommittee within House Foreign Affairs Committee. And that gives me like ample vision of what's happening vis-a-vis the United States and how much they, meaning Central and South America, want to engage. Nearshoring, reshoring, that's what we got to do. Take it away from China, bring it into the hemisphere, whether it's here or in Central America, and let's be a more prosperous neighborhood.
Yeah, it's alarming what has been happening, but grateful that there is now some attention being paid to it at least. Now, you've got a new book out that I think is intriguing. It's called Dignity, Not Citizenship, The Truth About Immigration No One is Telling You.
Yes.
You have a number of specific policy proposals. Talk to us about what you think should happen with this issue that, of course, never goes away in American politics.
Never goes away. 40 years since Ronald Reagan, internet was formed after. It's like this problem is older than the internet. It's mind-boggling. How come having the strongest democracy in the world, the biggest economy, we've not been able to figure out what are we going to do with illegals and what are we going to do with the border? Now the border is sealed by by the signature of the president, executive order. That doesn't mean that we've passed a law sealing the border. And that's what we need to do. So we secure the border forever via legislation. And then we look inside and we take care of those who have been here for more than 5 years, do not have a criminal record. I've been working construction, hospitality, agricultural, dairies, slaughterhouses, health care on the fields. Take care of those, bring them out of the shadows, and make them pay for their crimes. Make them pay a fine, and make them pay 1% of their salaries for 7 years plus another 7. And let's solve the immigration problem. And Trump is the person who can get this done. He could be for immigration what Lincoln was for slavery and Reagan was for communism. I have no doubt he will sign this law because he's the construction guy. He's a hospitality guy. He's the man.
Well, Congresswoman, you know you're going to hear the objections from a faction within the Republican Party. This looks
amnesty.
Like amnesty. So what do you
what
say
does
about
amnesty
that?
mean? What does amnesty mean? Amnesty is path to citizenship. There is no path. Amnesty is federal programs. There are no federal programs available to the illegals. Amnesty is e-verify. It's mandatory. Amnesty is not catch and release or just gaming the system when it comes to the asylum system. I stopped that with the humanitarian campuses. No more catch and release. You have to come into a campus, stay there until we adjudicate your case and determine if you do have merits or not to receive asylum in this country. So what's amnesty?
Fascinating.
Oh, and seal the border. Yeah, well, the border's sealed. And I'm codifying in law sealing of the border or keeping it. And there's a lot of billions of dollars to give to Border Patrol, new drones, more infrared cameras, better cars, more dogs, whatever it is there. But what are you going to do with the people who are inland?
Well, folks, if you want to learn more about that proposal, you can get the book, Dignity, Not Citizenship, The Truth About Immigration No One is Telling You.
In Amazon. You can go to Amazon.
And it's on Amazon and everywhere else that good books are sold. Congresswoman, I want to ask you, too, you have been very passionate about this issue. You had H-Con Res 58, which passed the House, massive margin, 285 to 98, reaffirming that socialism is incompatible with America's founding principles. You talk about some of the horrible crimes perpetrated by socialist regimes. You've also got another related bill, H.R. 2080, Crucial Communism Teaching Act. You say that young people just don't realize the horrors of communism. Talk to us about this issue. Why are you so passionate about socialism, communism, exposing it, stopping it, teaching our young people the horrors that have been perpetrated in its name?
Because we lived it. I represent the city of Miami, which is the heart of the Cuban exile community and the Venezuelan community. And I know the horrors of socialism. It's not that I lived them personally on my skin, but my parents and my grandparents and my uncles and everyone that I grew up with, the neighbors, the cousins, everyone was suffering the sorrows of thinking that socialism was wonderful in theory, but it was miserable in practice. And the Cubans lived it. So I feel very concerned because, unfortunately, in this country, young Americans do not have a point of reference like we have in my community. You cannot recognize black if you've never seen white. And that's the problem, that they have drunk the Kool-Aid. And they really believe there's equality and all this equality and equity and what is it that the other one is like?
Inclusion.
Egalitarian inclusion. Yeah, you have the same opportunities, but you do not have the same results. We're even level the playing field for the opportunities. But hey, if I want to have the same result of Jeff Bezos, I would have wanted to invent Amazon. I mean, or I want to, yeah, I mean, so if we're all going to be equal, then I want to be equal just like Jeff. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's what a fallacy. But this country does give you the platform where you can have the same opportunity if you look for it, if you behave well, if you're responsible, if you have a code of ethics, if you have work ethics, if you go to study. It's not for free. And that is the fallacy of communism, where they make government God. And they have and that's one of the most dangerous aspects of it, is that they do believe that they have the moral high ground. They're the moral ones. We're not. Well, they don't have a monopoly on compassion. We're compassionate too.
Yeah. And
So
to your point, we just saw in New York City elect a guy who describes himself as a socialist, Zoran Mamdani. How did it happen that young Americans got to the point where they don't realize some of these dangers, and how do we go about fixing it?
they don't realize it because they have never lived it. They have never come to Miami and spoken with the Cubans. No, they're in Northeast, the guilt for the abundance. That's the problem. The more abundance, the more guilt. Okay, well, I'm not. Why should you feel guilty for what your parents did and for the abundance and for the country that you live in? Okay, if you feel guilty, then join an organization, be a volunteer, give money to the church, give money to NGOs. Just spread your wealth, but don't pretend the government's going to do that for you. So.
Yeah, I know we're almost out of time here, Congresswoman. I do want to ask you about the attacks on liberty that are coming from our traditional allies on the other side of the pond. Secretary of State Marco Rubio just posted on X, the European Commission's $140 million fine isn't just an attack on X, it's an attack on all American tech platforms and the American people by foreign governments. He says the days of censoring Americans online are over. I mean, how does it happen that even our allies that we understood to be allies in freedom and free speech are now trying to regulate Americans? And how does the United States respond to this kind of situation?
Exactly the way Marco is responding, exactly the way we told them that they have to increase their GPS, no, not GPS, I'm sorry, that they have to increase from 2% to 5% the expenditures that they are giving to the defense sector, that they have to spend more money on their own security. And this is the same thing. It's just that it's really easy to be friends with the United States as long as they are abiding, or that they want us to abide by the rules, and we're completely different cultures. That's why we are who we are, and that's why they depend on us. And the free spirit that you see in the United States is something that the Europeans wish they could have, but they don't. Still, they depend on us. You know, is the eternal struggle with Latin America, with Europe, with the Middle East. You know, everyone loves the United States. Everyone wants to copy our model. It's just sometimes a little bit troubling, or it's too much effort to do it. Yes, that's I think that Marco is doing an incredible job, and he's sending the right messages, just like Trump sent the right message when he came to the military expenditure.
Well, Congresswoman, before we let you go, are you optimistic that the United States can be made great again, in the words of Donald Trump? You think the next 3.5 years are going to turn some of these problems around?
I think we've always, throughout history, and I know that you are a scholar of the American history, at every turn we've had big challenges: the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the Great Depression. The system always cleans itself, rectifies itself, And we find a way, because of the fantastic system that the founding fathers put together, we always find a way to come out of the crisis. And I do believe that right now we're in a very difficult, unique political moment when it comes to the division, when it comes to the penetration of socialism within the Democratic Party, which is something that concerns me, because that's a foreign ideology to the American way of life, to our core values as a country. But I do think that we know what we have, and we have the American exceptionality, and we got to preserve it. And that's why I'm in Congress. I was 35 years as a journalist. I miss being on the air, but we need to give back to the country that has given us so much, specifically my community, the Cuban-American community. In one generation, look what we've done. Look at Marco Rubio, who's the same thing, Cuban-American, first generation, born in the United States. Look where he's at. And myself, one generation, Congresswoman.
Amen. Well, we'll leave it there, Congresswoman. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, the book is Dignity, Not Citizenship, The Truth About Immigration No One is Telling You. Congresswoman María Elvira Salazar, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be talking to your viewership. All right, stay well.
Thank you.
Go to Amazon, and the truth about immigration that no one is telling you except myself.
Very good. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us on the program today. Really appreciate you sharing your insights and speaking out about some of what's going on in Latin America, especially the role that American subversives are playing in helping along this process and the dangers of socialism infiltrating our country. Really appreciate it. And you, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick break with more on the Sentinel Report.